Hey, there we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it might be in your part of the world. Welcome back to the live stream. My name is Jeff Fritz, and this is another C Sharp with CSharpFritz show. How you doing there, chat room? I already see a bunch of folks checked in, all connected. I was doing some last minute checking there. We were having some problems with our streaming service. I think we're online now. It looks like we're good. Let me say hello. Let's say hello to some of the folks that are out there. My goodness. Let's bring up the chat room. They are right over there, and we'll start our AMA section here. Let's go. Let's say hello to some folks over there on the YouTube. Rasim, hello to you. Stefan, hello to you in Serbia. Strug, hello to you in Russia. Glowy, welcome in. Rasim is in Azerbaijan. Cladwo is here from Ghana. Zanzibar from the planet Earth. Hey, that's pretty cool. I am too. Is it Nudzo from South Africa? No, Duduzo. Yeah, I think I got that. Kale, how you doing there in India? Fennell is here from Miami. Matt Quatzi, how you doing there from a warm and windy mountaintop? Should have bought a reception booster. We'll get you connected there. How you doing there, Akshay? Good to see you. And I see Surly Dev, Motown Andy, Pankaj 875 from India over there on Twitch. Who was Duca Soft is here as well. Hello. Amelia Rose in California. How you doing there, Amelia? Lorenzo Wagner from Argentina. The unexpected guy from India. Let me scroll through here. Nikolai is here from Ukraine. So good to see you. Thank you. All the best. Thoughts and prayers to our friends in Ukraine. As somebody who has family, Ukrainian family, my thoughts are very much with the folks in Ukraine over the last month or two now, as they're going through this terrible conflict. Hello, Lurgadon in Switzerland. Ravindra is here from Atlanta. Dylan just got a role doing C# microservices. Oh my goodness, you just got a role. We got to celebrate that, folks. You get a new job. We got to celebrate that. We got to celebrate that. Congratulations to Dylan on YouTube with a new role working with C# microservices, and they're from Northern Ireland. Good to see you. Let me see. I said hello. AOG, I said hello to them. Actually, I said hello to them as well. Gabrielle, good to see you in Argentina. Warner's here from Brazil. How you doing there, Shapur? Diego from Mexico. Matuyas from Poland. My goodness, I love hearing all the places. I think we've heard most of. I think we've got a couple continents covered here. Seven Modo from Bahrain. Jacksor from Cardiff, Wales. Jafar from Ethiopia. Nice. M1DW1 is here from Austria over there on the Twitch. Mahdi is here from Iran. Rakib from Bangladesh. Nice. Gene Baez, hello to you in the Dominican. Quadwo in Ghana. Stavros in Athens, Greece. Dylan's a placement student looking forward to learning. Awesome. Marcin is here from I bet that's pronounced Marcin from Poland. Ninib from Sweden. Good to see you. Is that pronounced German from Colombia? Dan Moyer from Findlay, Ohio. DH Sam is on Twitch and they're dialed in from Malaysia. Pankaj asks, what are the similarities in C++ and C#? They're both named C, and they have object-oriented approaches. After that, not too much. How you doing there, Carlos in the Dominican? No, I'm on Twitch. I'm on the Visual Studio channel over on Twitch. How you doing there, Greg? Nitro Evils here on the Twitch channel, Visual Studio Twitch channel. Ensar from Turkey. CBNetJP from Japan. Good to see you. Rip MMD is here from Connecticut. Aruna from Sri Lanka. Oh, glad to see you there, Nikolai. Glad to hear you're doing well and tuned in for a little bit of coding, a little bit of fun today. It's been a while since we've been together. I wanted to make sure that we reconnected. Here in the States, this is a holiday. This is recognized as a federal holiday for Juneteenth, but we want to spend. I think it's important that folks spend. Juneteenth was actually yesterday, but it's a day that we should spend learning, and I could think of no better way for me to contribute than to continue doing this stream and have those conversations about tech. Make this content freely available to everybody so that you can learn and hopefully advance your career. Get somewhere where you're doing more, you're able to contribute more, and hopefully make a couple extra bucks for you and your family and grow your career somewhere. I hope that works out very well for all of you. I'm going to get some music playing here in the background. I'll go to some more greetings. We'll continue with the AMA. We've got about 30 minutes of AMA left here. This is Stream Beats. This is music that is royalty-free, DMCA-free. You can listen to it wherever you'd like. Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, doesn't matter. And this is the Synthwave playlist we're listening to today. This is groovy music that we have behind us. It's cool to listen to, and it gets me in the mood, gets me moving with writing some code. There's all kinds of genres available out there: rock, synthwave, EDM, R&B, you name it. Check it out at streambeats.com. There's playlists available for Apple Music, Amazon Music, and like I'm listening to, Spotify right here. Thank you so much to Harris Heller and his team of creators for making this music available for us to listen to today. D&B? I don't know. Maybe. I have to take a look. So let me get the gunner glasses on because we're going to get ready to do some coding here today. Let me see. All right. We're not going to compare. We don't want to compare languages and say one is better than another. Is that TMS brands over there on YouTube? I don't like doing that. I prefer C#. I've written my fair share of Java. And I've got a screen name that I took after C#, so that's where my preferences lie. folks are very productive and do some very cool things with Java as well. Let me see. Let's take a look here. Hello, Stephen in Australia. All right, so we've got Asia, Europe, Australia online. I saw some folks from South America. Do we have anybody from Africa dialed in today? And then I think we've got everybody covered there. CTI Geek, good morning to you in Virginia. Oh yeah, got the gunners on. It's time to get serious. I'm a big fan of the computer vision glasses. Got a little bit of a smear right there still. It's a little bit of a halo. Hello to you, Sejan. Is it Sejan? Sejan in Melbourne. Is this beginner as well? Yes, it is. Absolutely. Stefan on YouTube asks, how do I convince my team to use C# instead of PHP? You can go with the raw speed comparison. C# is the fastest web development framework available. C# has a dedicated team at Microsoft that is building tooling and ensuring that it runs at its fastest on Azure. You have great tooling available to you with Visual Studio, Visual Studio Code, and Visual Studio for Mac. So take a look at the raw numbers. If you go out to techempower.com, you can see, oh, that's better. You can see the performance of C#, of ASP.NET Core, like we're going to be developing with here today, and you'll see just how fast C# is compared to PHP. Additionally, C# code running on a website is compiled. It's not interpreted like it is with PHP. So when you're using PHP, you can change those files right on the web server, and they'll be reinterpreted and rerun every time, versus you actually have to compile and redeploy new binary code that's written with C#. So it gives a little bit of a security protection there, so you're not just blindly pushing text into a file. It gets interpreted and rerun. So there's probably 3-4 good reasons to take a look. So let me continue wandering through the greetings here. Hello to you, Nanad in Serbia. Felix Patrick, hello to you in Nairobi, Kenya. There we go. We've got somebody from Africa dialed in. Zerx is here from South Africa. That's right. We did have somebody else from South Africa earlier. So I believe we do have 6 of the 7 continents covered. Thank you so much to our friends in Eastern Asia and Australia, New Zealand. Thank you for staying up, spending your evening with me as we write a little bit of code and learn a little bit about ASP.NET Core. Of course, this video is being recorded. It will be available over on the YouTube. All of the content, all of the samples, the code that we're writing here today will be compiled and committed. It's actually already on GitHub. It's in a branch hiding off to the side. After we make our final changes, we'll merge and it'll all be good out there. Check it out. GitHub.com. I believe we can execute the GitHub command there in chat. And yeah, that screen's not going to work for me. Neither is that one. Let's see. Is this going to work for me? There it is. There's the GitHub command. And that'll get you links to the source code, to all the information that we're going to be going through here today. We're going to focus on configuration for our ASP.NET Core website, and we're going to introduce Entity Framework Core to that website so that we can start loading data from disk. And we're going to learn about seeding a database and how to use a little bit of a repository pattern so we can swap out the way that we interact with our data, so that we don't have to change our user interface. More on that in a little bit. Did I say moron? No, I don't think I meant it that way. Hello to you, Bandaru in Germany. Is it Chenian in Cambodia? Tarun, how you doing there in India? Warner on YouTube loves C#. Me too. Me too. Nitro Evil, yes, absolutely. ASP.NET Core, very good point there. Nitro Evil points out ASP.NET Core C#, just like PHP, is open source. All the source code is available for you out there on GitHub. Should you want to go in and try and tinker with it, push back a little bit, you can take a look at that. That's right, Surly Dev. I got the clean gunners on now. I can see sharp. I can see sharp. No? Okay. Moving on. How you doing there? Is it Leger in Senegal? Good to see you. What's the filter on the gunner glasses called? This is a blue light computer vision filter. How you doing there? Juan Santos in Rio de Janeiro, recent Olympic city. Good to see you. Hello, hello. Seven Mudo asks, is Entity Framework my main data access tool? Sometimes. In some applications, yes. In other applications, no. It really depends on what type of database that I'm working with. If I'm working with a relational database like SQL Server, SQLite, Oracle, Postgres, MySQL, I'll prefer Entity Framework. Dapper gives me some ways to interact with data as well that get around some of the entity relationship management that can be a little hairy, can be a little dicey. So I'll use that as well. But when I'm working with a NoSQL database like Cosmos DB, MongoDB, or RavenDB, I'll use their native tools and APIs to work with those interactions. Let me see here. James asks, are we doing anything with logging? Can I please provide a quick explanation? I wasn't planning on doing anything with logging. I wasn't planning on doing anything today. Do me a favor. Open an issue in the GitHub repository. I will make sure that we talk about logging next week. Okay, I'll make sure that I put it in the samples. I can touch on it briefly today, but open an issue over there in the repository. I'll make sure that I have something in the samples that we do next week around logging. And I'm noticing that you can see my blue fingers. I got my hair colored last week. Woo-hoo-hoo! There's something about having blue hair that just makes me feel like I could take on the world. Is that a thing? Maybe it is. Continuing on here. How you doing there, Katie on YouTube? Hello to you in the DRC. How you doing, Joel? Ergenrod, good morning to you. Richard Scoop is here from Curacao in the Dutch Caribbean. Jens is here on Twitch. Or James Foreman from Orlando, Florida. Awesome. Jose in Ecuador. Good to see you, Jose. Tassin from Pakistan. Shapur, I believe I said hello to Shapur already in Germany. Robogel, or is it Rob OGL in Austria? Good to see you. Nova Troop and David, that's David in Northern Ireland. You love the synthwave. It is a good chill out. This is a good just chill music. It's nice. Kind of groovy, kind of tech. How you doing there, Babak? Surly Dev says Jeff isn't happy even if he is looking a little blue. Okay. Chat room with the jokes. I see. I'm the one who tells the jokes here. Me. How you doing, Twan? Alhan is here from Turkey. Good to see you. Snoogcell doesn't watch live streams often. You prefer to watch the videos. Glad to see me live. Well, thank you. I hope you find some value in watching live because this is where you get your questions answered. Right? You can post questions in the comments and, okay, there's a question in the comment, and it relies on me coming back sometime later and finding it, and I typically do, but there's nothing that compares to the live stream and what we can do here. How you doing, Nova Troop? I do the blue hair, yet cover the head 90%. So there's two reasons why you'll see me wearing a hat on stream. First, the band of the headphones feels weird against my head, and it ends up leaving marks in my hair because I'm wearing a headband on the headphones all day. Also, I'm just lazy and don't like combing my hair. Let me see here. Katie's from Angola. Great to see you here. Snoogcell is here from Russia. Thank you so much for tuning in. Kelly, hello. Good to see you. Tassin appreciates the hair color. Thank you so much. Greg Cyrus says, logging is badly supported out of the box. I disagree. Logging with the tools that come with .NET works great to the console, does a nice job sending things over to application insights. If you do want to send data somewhere that is a little bit more interesting, you want to send it to a third-party database instead of to application insights or to the console, or to the event log or to your Linux system log, yeah, you're going to want to go grab another logging tool at that point. I'll agree with you on that. Take the cap off, keep it off all stream. I might do that, Nova Troop. Johan S., what's the utmost reason I use Entity Framework? It's easy to use for the typical CRUD interactions that I have with data. Create, read, update, and delete. That's what CRUD stands for. It's incredibly useful. It's fast. And I don't have to think about any of my interactions with the database. It just does it all for me. As soon as you start getting into more complex interactions, more complex structures and data types, and we already had a session about Entity Framework, so I'm not going to dive into some of the inner workings of Entity Frameworks and some of the things you can do with relationships, keys and foreign keys and navigation properties. We've already covered that. Really, today I'm going to show you how to get it into a project and how to manage it from there. So, from that point of view, really easy to use. Really, really easy to use. How you doing there, Yogesh? Good to see you. Readability for Entity Framework and maintainability. You're right, Nova Troop. Absolutely. Very readable, very maintainable. How you doing there, Babash in Nepal? Good to see you. Hey, Robert is here. Leighton. I know why he prefers your live. Why? Waiting for an MSN clone. Asks Chenian. Why are you waiting for an MSN clone? Dylan. How long do streams usually last? These streams are scheduled for 2 hours. And I do structure this a bit like Developer Talk Radio, where I'm not giving a presentation. I'm having a conversation with you. I know that you're sitting, you're either watching on a tablet, a phone, or maybe on a laptop, and I know that I'm just a couple feet from your face, not even. And I know that you're listening to me, maybe in the radio, maybe you've got speakers on in your home, in your office, and this is a nice conversation between us. If you want a presentation, if you want to just get the facts, you want to just see, here's the code to how to do something, there's documentation out there that shows you how to do that. When you go to a lesson at a school or you go to a conference and you sit in on a workshop, it's this conversation that folks value. So let's have that conversation. Let's chat, let's discuss. Let's answer your questions as we're going through and building the features in our website. You can absolutely go find a 2-minute video on TikTok that'll tell you how to put configuration into your application. Sure. Are you going to remember it? Are you going to go back and reference it? Is that something that's going to bring you joy after those 2 minutes? Why, when you could Google or Bingle or whatever, DuckDuckGo, and get the same documentation that person is just reading on their TikTok video, you can go get that from over there on the Microsoft documentation. I'm going to show you samples. We're going to tinker with it. We're going to break it. We're going to show you why it works, how it works, how you can override things. Let's talk about that. Let's have those conversations. That's what makes this valuable. That's what makes live streaming in this longer form more interesting. All right? Zerks on YouTube says, logging and reading from AppIm sites is powerful. It is. It really is. Any kind of data store that's doing, for your log, that's doing analysis of it. And there's a bunch of other third-party services out there that do stuff like that. And I think of folks like Datadog that make that available. Really, really powerful stuff that shouldn't be glossed over. So, Yogesh from India, how you doing? Cigar, with the question here. Please discuss show demo for global error handling for beginner level in a .NET 6 web API project. Tell you what, here's what we're going to be covering APIs. I believe it's next time is when it's on the schedule. Here's what I'd like you to do. Go over to the website, and I'm going to drop the link in here. I want you to open an issue. That is a great topic. Thank you. Is it Cigar? Here's what I'd like you to do. I'm going to drop a link in there because we're going to talk about APIs. I think it's next time or the time after that. drop me an entry. Right there is the link. It's posted from Restream.io. Okay, just put a line there about what you're looking to learn, and I'll make sure it's in the demo for next time. Okay, I can comment briefly on it, but I want to make sure that I get you a rich, full demo on that. Okay. Will today's tutorial code be on GitHub? Yes, it always is. Yes, yes, yes. RipMMD asks, is there still such a concept as model first versus database first? Yes, there is. We're going to take a look at the command line for EF today. Remind me when I get to that segment, and I'll show you how you can do database first as well. Hello, Hassan. Good to see you. Pedro Jose asks, am I against using repository pattern on top of EF? No, I am not. I am a big fan of using repository pattern on top of entity framework. If you've seen my streams over on my channel, we're building an application over there. I talked about it on .NET Rocks last week. The week before. An application called ClipTalk, and I've changed database 3 times. And I used a repository pattern to help alleviate any kind of changes that I needed to make in my application source code. And you're going to see the benefit of that today, because we're going to migrate our Little Hats collection website. It's a collection website, but this collection demo website, from being loading data from a JSON file on disk to loading data from a entity framework database, and how the repository pattern is going to prevent us, is going to allow us to make that database change without needing to change the user interface. So I think it's a very valid tool when you might be changing, when you're a new organization, a new project, and there's a possibility of changing database providers. Let's not say database providers, data storage providers. If you're in some sort of an enterprise where you're building an intranet application and you're always going to be using SQL Server because that's what your database folks know how to support, you don't need to use repository pattern. You're going to be just fine straight entity framework. But when you're growing a new application in a new ecosystem, a new environment, take a look at that. Take a look at repository pattern. Can I please write down the channel link? Which channel link are you looking for? You can find us on Twitch. My Twitch is twitch.tv/CSharpFritz. You like this radio talk very much, says Greg on YouTube. Thank you so much. Let me continue reading through here. Will I be covering best practices when developing with EF? Asks Stephen on YouTube. No, I did a session previously on that, so I'm not gonna go down into that today. Hello, Matthias in Ethiopia. First time tuning in, buzzing. Happy to be here. Thank you so much, Matthias. Great to have you with us. Yep, having a conversation with you and teaching. I can do several things at once. Snugsoul asks, is it possible in .NET to refer an exe in a DLL? Refer to an exe from a DLL? No. It's usually the other way. You're building an exe, you're building some sort of an application, and you refer to libraries, you refer to classes in a DLL. Moshiko asks, will you do it on Mac? I'm not set up for that today, but Moshiko, I will do that next time. I will set up my PowerBook, but my MacBook Pro, the PowerBook. What the heck? I will set up the Mac Pro next time, and I will do it on Mac. I need to get some configuration nailed down, but it's sitting right there. I just put it underneath my table, but I will do it next time on a Mac. Absolutely. Let's book that for sure. Dylan, wonder how long you'll have left in your workday after this stream. Only half an hour. That's not bad. Can I compare EF Core with Dapper? Asks Apricot. Dapper is very much built for folks who know SQL. You pass entire SQL statements into Dapper. those database commands that you want it to execute, and Dapper will turn it back into the appropriate C#, the .NET objects that you're requesting. Versus Entity Framework, you just interact with .NET objects, and Entity Framework will translate those interactions with your .NET objects into the database commands, the select, insert, update, and delete commands to send over to the relational database. That's the 30-second pitch about the difference in those. Can we use the same authentication in Blazor Server Project in Maui? No. Blazor Server Project uses identity. You can expose that endpoint and have Maui connect to it. You got a couple jumps there to get Maui to connect to it. Entity Framework, are there new features in .NET 7? Yes, I'm not talking about .NET 7 though. I don't talk about versions of .NET on this show until they're released. This show is intended for beginners, and I don't want to confuse folks with new features that aren't concrete, that aren't released yet. I like to keep things on what you can use, those capabilities that you can focus on and work with. Dylan asks, do you reckon I can follow along in VS Code, or is this more suited for full Visual Studio? Dylan, I'm using Visual Studio Code today, so there you go. You can absolutely use Visual Studio Code. Am I a fan of having a separate repository and service layers as a separation of data access and business logic, or do you prefer other concepts? What's my opinion of CQRS? That's a lot of questions there. M1DW1 on Twitch. I do like to separate, when I get into larger applications, I do like to separate concerns. CQRS, I think, makes a lot of sense when you get into very complex applications, and we need to start being concerned with the speed of interactions of things with those complex concepts. If you're building a blog, you don't need CQRS. If you're building a simple store website, you don't need CQRS. If you're building a large enterprise-grade application that's going to manage personnel interactions, absentee management, attendance, hours logged through a time clock, oh yeah, take a look at CQRS at that point. How you doing there, AK? Good to see you again. Timebenders here from Canada and watching on Twitch. Leighton says, I prefer code first, save my time. We're going to do code first today. I'll show you how to do database first as well. Will I be deploying the database from code? Yes, I will. Kevin on YouTube. Matthias asks, is this tailored toward beginners? Yes, but I'm happy to answer more advanced questions that are not off topic. We're working with adding a database today. I can answer some of those questions, but I don't want to overwhelm folks that are just getting started. So be aware. Blue hair equals Windows. All right, fine. We'll go with blue hair for the rest of the stream. How's that? Howdy to you, Waddy Neck. Good to see you. Can I make a citywide parking app with 100,000 users and 10,000 magnometer sensors? Can I make one? I don't know. I need more details. Is it, 100,000 users, how many concurrent users are those? Don't know. Is an embedded with C# possible? Embedded system with C# possible? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Sridhar would like to see more. Is that Sridhar? Would like to see more on object relational management, ORM. We did the entity framework session. Maybe we'll come back and do a little bit more. Let's think about it. Not opposed. Drop me a line on that issues repository on GitHub, and we can talk about that. What is CQRS? Asked Nitro Evil. Command and query responsibility segregation. I don't like using the word segregation. I'd rather use the word separation. But command and query responsibility separation. You have, when you think about how an application works, you have reads and you have writes. If we turn all of our reads into queries, and we turn all of our writes, that's inserts, updates, and deletes on objects, if we put all of those in as commands, we can separate those two so that all of our reads are very, very fast, non-blocking interactions. And all of our commands, all of our writes, take their time, make sure that they properly update the database and associated other data stores with appropriate business logic. And it takes and it takes a certain amount of architectural sophistication to coordinate that. Not something that you need in every application. It can get very complex very quickly. There you go. Blue is the warmest color. Okay. How to connect to discuss the project with me? Drop me a line on Twitter is the best. CSharpFritz on Twitter. And I'm yeah. I'm not sure what exactly you're looking for there, but I'm happy to answer some questions to help you get started there. Target X, can I say what is the least cost to host a very small ASP web app with database connection monthly? With a database connection, well, your database is going to be what's costing you, but you can get away. You can do that for free on Microsoft Azure if you sign up for a brand new account and stand up an app service with database. You should be able to. It's either free or it's like $10 a month. So, Philippe asks, what do I think about the unit of work pattern with EF Core? It works fine. It's something you need to be aware of. It's something that can trip folks up because they expect data to be updated and persisted before the unit of work is completed. So, it's not bad. It's a good way to force people into committing and working with a good unit of work, a good block, a conceptual block of data that all needs to be saved and committed at the same time. Zerks on YouTube asks, will I be covering temporal tables in EF today? No, sorry. This is hooking the website up to a database. This isn't deep dive on EF features. Sorry. Daniel asks, comments, I'm always undecided about which design patterns to use for business logic layer of a web application. Should it be a singleton, static class, facade? And you're right, Daniel. And it just scrolled off there. To your point, this is what makes software architects important, because they can interpret and kind of point you in the right direction with those. This is what makes senior software developers a little bit more like an artist and an engineer than just somebody who writes code, because they know how to choose which design patterns and which techniques to pull together those features, right, and write those features for their application. Red is fastest. How you doing there, Fuel Snable? Zofran777, struggling with link entity framework and understanding when the different methods should be used. Written versus executed queries. Any pointers? I don't like to pass queryable objects into my user interface. I like to push the fully hydrated array or a list object that will then be presented on the user interface. I don't like to do that. I like to force with either a toArray async or a toList async command inside my data access layer, inside my service layer, to make sure that as I pass between layers of the application, I'm just passing collections of objects. Should we use arrays or let's focus on lists? Asks Libertas on YouTube. I'm beginning to like arrays more and more. Lists are easier to write to, but arrays I think of as almost immutable. They're not, but I think of arrays as immutable as I pass them around through my application. Executed queries. Yeah. Choosing that. How long will the stream take? We're going to be here another hour 15, having this kind of developer talk radio. Are there any limitations in using EF, reads, writes, accessing data? No, there aren't limitations, but there are times where you'll get into a corner of Entity Framework where things get more complex. At those points, it sometimes makes sense to bring in another tool to interact with the database. Nothing wrong with that, but be aware that it can have different implications on how you're interacting with your data. So, please suggest how we can use Ajax in MVC. Did we still call it Ajax? We're going to be covering that next week when we get into APIs as well. So, yeah. Just blue air fritzing. How you doing there, Unesco? Yeah, a little bit. You get confused on add transient and add the other one, asks Nova Troop, talking about dependency injection. I'll touch on that briefly as I show the dependency injection today. What can be best scenarios to use a rules engine? That's a deep question. I'm sorry, I'm going to pass on that as we get into the last 2 minutes of Q&A here. I would look at a rules engine when you do have significant complex business processes that you want to be able to modify. That's when I would start looking at a rules engine, but that's a very deep question. I see some discussion of arrays. Zofran says, with MVC, does one call the database from a method to add some logic to the various properties, or should I stick with basic POCOs? Stick with basic POCOs, and that's exactly what our demos look like today. How you doing there, Debasis Paul? Good to see you. Brocco, how you doing over there on Twitch? What database source am I hooking Entity Framework up today? We're going to use SQLite, just because that's portable. Folks can use that on every framework, every operating system. What's different? Send and publish in Mediator. Sorry, not talking about Mediator. That's another framework. That's somebody else's tool. Pass. I know it's the scope of how long it is in memory. Yes, it is. That's right, Nova Troop. Fun English says, my hair color is pretty. Thanks. I wanted to go Azure, but I think it worked out well. What about using EF Core with MongoDB? I can't remember if they finished getting EF Core working with the NoSQL databases. I can't remember. I would prefer to use Mongo's native API myself. Will I be showing CRUD of Entity Framework? I'm only going to get into the read today. We did CRUD with Entity Framework a few months ago when we did our Entity Framework session. That recording is available over on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/.net. Look for the C# with CSharpFritz playlist, and you'll see the Entity Framework video in there. In a future unit, can I cover testing with EF mocking? I wouldn't do EF mocking so much as I would do EF with an in-memory database. And that's time. Let you pick hair color? No. Because next time it's purple. Any articles on how to break complex, plain old C# object into destination, table, and backend? I don't have any ones, no. Any articles on that? No. Is it possible to use Mongo driver for a larger scale API server? Sure. No, beard is not changing color. All right, moving on. Let's get into today's project. Today we're talking about taking our ASP.NET MVC app, and the focus here is on learning MVC and what we can do to build an application, what that growth looks like. And today I want to talk about using the configuration objects that are available to us in .NET so that we can load data and get it into our application, and then start working with database. How do we bring Entity Framework Core into the mix? Because there's different hooks, there's different features in Entity Framework Core and ASP.NET so that they work together really, really nicely. So today we're going to use SQLite, but you can use any number of database drivers that are out there. SQL Server, Oracle, Postgres, MySQL. MySQL means you also get MariaDB. Um, you name it. For relational databases, you can use those to work together with this. Let me see here. Is the Connect SQLite connection the same for SQL Server? Just about. Different connection string and a different driver, but I'll show you how that works. How do you relate this with test-driven development? I'm not doing test-driven development as part of this, but that's absolutely something you could do. Drop me a line on that issues list. Over on, and I will get some test-driven content samples into next week's session. So, Frankly Gamer over there on Twitch. Wait a sec, Frankly Gamer, just scrolling off here, just graduated as a software developer, looking for a C#.net job. Congratulations! Look at that. Congratulations to Frankly Gamer 29 on Twitch. Phenomenal. All the best. You've experienced cases where unit tests pass on the in-memory database and fail on the actual database? That is funny. If the in-memory database is not a good, isn't a good simulation, if it isn't in the same state as the live database, yeah, I could see that being different. All right, let me get things set up. I didn't even test my microphone. Can we test the microphone? Hello, test. Yeah, that's good. We're good with this microphone. All right. Let's start getting set up so we can go over to the other set. A successful unit test is just a failed counterproof. If you're doing a unit test and you're testing all the way down into the insert into the database, you've crossed about a border there. You've crossed a boundary. And in my mind, now you're testing the database at that point. That's where I like to stop testing at the repository boundary. Seven Modo, just starting their final year project with .NET. All the best of luck to you. Thoughts on domain-driven design? It's a very large architecture pattern that some folks have built some tools for. I recommend studying and learning that pattern before you get into it, and I would only consider it for very large projects. Do I think ADO.NET is more suitable than EF for complicated projects? No. All right, let's get into this. Let's head over to the other set. I want my coffee with me because coffee is what makes developers go around. And let's head over to the other set and start talking about configuration and well, get familiar with our project again. We're going to talk about configuration and we're going to talk about database. I'll catch you over on the other set. See you in a minute. And I'm over here now. Fantastic. We made it and everything went out of focus while I wasn't looking. Are you kidding? I mean, come on now. That's not the least bit annoying that I get everything all set up and nope, I'm even more out of focus. What the heck? Like, you sit there for an hour and stuff goes out of focus. Really? I think that's it. I think that's where we want to be. Yeah, that worked. Oh my god, my hair's blue, and you can't see it. And I gotta be careful. You know what? I'm gonna need to put the hat back on. Sorry, friends. And we need to tweak this filter slightly. See, this is how you tell things are live, you know? Because we're making changes live as we're going here. Look at this. Look at this. All right, good. Fantastic. And I got logged out of my teleprompter. Nice. Come on, chat. Get loaded there. There we go. All right. Are we starting from the beginning? No, we're not. Why am I not using Visual Studio? Because I like to use tools that everybody can use. If I were to use Visual Studio, I'd be using... no, close all these. Close all those. If I were to be using Visual Studio, I would be using the Community Edition. I want to use tools that everybody can use on every platform and everybody can learn from. All right? So, let's talk about this. We are over here. No, that's not it. I want to open here and get into the GitHub. No, I don't want you to restore anything. GitHub, CSharpFritz, C# with CSharpFritz. There we go. And we are down here in sessions. This is season 2. We are working on the collection website. And I'm going to change branches here. I'm going to call an audible here. There we go. And we are talking about configuration and data. All right? Now, we're building on this concept of a collection website. We've all got some sort of a collection. You might collect coffee mugs. You might collect hats. Yeah, heck, you might even collect mobile phones. You might collect mice. I don't know. Everybody collects something that makes you happy. The goal of this series of sessions is not just to learn ASP.NET Core MVC, but also to build that little collection website and learn about several of the supporting technologies along the way. Okay? So, previously, last time, we started the website from scratch, and you can find that content in the 1203 folder here, right there. You can also find it on the previous video in this playlist. We're going to be down here setting up and adding in configuration options and data. All right? Is Azure DevOps? No. Am I back at campus? No. I'm still at home. This is my home studio. So, let's talk about where the project is. We'll do a little bit of refactoring. We're going to get some configuration loaded in from app settings. I'll also show you how you can load configuration from environment variables. We're going to introduce Entity Framework Core into the project, create a data context, and then pre-populate some data in our database. So let's head over to Visual Studio Code over here. I'm going to go into the previous version of the project. And, nah, don't run it in the terminal. Let's run it... okay, fine. We'll run it in the terminal. I'll work with that. Over here and into that folder. And I'm going to launch the application with this .NET Watch command. You see right there, okay? .NET Watch says... come on. No, I didn't want you doing that. You go away. And whatever. .NET Watch says build this application, and every time there's a change to one of these files, reload it. And here's my collection website. And right now in the collection are 2 of my hats. I just grabbed the pictures and we created these objects, these model objects that we could load with a partial view from our index controller. I'm sorry, from our home controller in the index method. And we learned the difference between controllers and methods and views and how those all fit together last time. So I have my Atari hat here and I have my Blazor hat here. 2 data points. Like I said, you might have your own collection of things. That kind of leads us into the first thing that I want to do here is let's introduce a configuration rule that allows us to name the types of things that we collect that we're presenting here. Okay? Now, this is a little bit of a convoluted use of configuration, but you're going to see we're going to do this also for the database connection string in just a little bit. So let's start with I'm going to stop this application and copy over into the 1204 project folder. Right, so let's go 1204. I'm going to go into the source folder. The source isn't over here. I need to copy it in from above. So, you know what? Let's do this. I'm going to do the drag drop and cheat. Right? I'm just going to reach into here, grab the contents of this folder, and we're going to start here so that we persist this little bit of a log for here's where we started, here's where we're going to. Okay? Cool. So now I'll leave it running down here, but let's go up to the 1204. Okay. And let's start with the .NET Watch. Right. Do that again. Got to get into my source folder. All right. So I'm now operating inside this folder, that source folder there, and there's my collection website. And it's in this watch mode where I can change content, right? I can put in here my hats collection, save that, and it updates the website immediately. Okay? So now that's what we've got from last time. So let's talk about configuration. Okay? Let's talk about how we can bring configuration into our application. And by configuration, I mean you have files that sit on disk that, or you have environment variables that define how this website works. Okay? Now, some folks will put configuration into a database, but you need to put some configuration on disk before you even get to the database so that you know how to get to the database, so that you know how to connect to those other resources that your application might be using. So let's start with a very simple configuration change. I want to take this reference to hats, and I want to put it into a configuration option, okay? Because I don't want my source code for this application to reference hats. If it's an application that I want you to be able to lift up the source code and use wherever you'd like for your coin collection, your comic book collection, whatever it is that you collect, okay? So I want to replace that. Additionally, when we were in here working last time, we created a class called Hat Repository. So let's take that, and I'm going to rename this to Collection Item Repository right there. Now, because I did an F2 rename, it's actually going to go through my code and find everywhere that I referenced Hat Repository and rename it. I see a question there from Nova Troop. Let me come back to you in just a second. I'm also going to rename the file. I can do that in Visual Studio Code by doing Control Dot here. And I can say rename file. Watch it over there. So rename file to collection item repository. And why didn't it rename it? Why didn't it rename it? If I force that, now it works. It didn't rename the file. Curious. Broken. We've got a bug to report. So the website is still working. And I've eliminated that reference. I'm also going to go in here to hat card, where I have this component right here for each one of these little cards. I'm going to rename that to item card. And I can change and update that reference. I had used it right here inside of an HTML partial. I'm actually going to change that so it uses the partial tag helper here. And that's close. And not quite. It was item hard. Okay. Delete that. Save. We can see hot reload still succeeded. And over here, refresh the page, and it still has my content. So I've renamed my files. I've renamed my objects. So I have all the hat references gone, but I want to put hats in there. Now there's a question here from NovaTroop that says, well, why not create a constants file and just put it out there? Sure, I could certainly do that. Create some sort of a file of C# constants. But when I put a file of C# constants, that is something that at compile time no longer exists. Instead, if we do this with configuration, I can go into app settings, and I have these configuration features already defined for my application. How we do logging, the hosts that are allowed to connect into this server. I can add a configuration option here, and it carries through and is still available and is still executed on my application when things are compiled and running in production. So if I add, let's call this collection type, and it's a hat collection, and let's also add one here, collection type plural. Oh, there we go. That's GitHub Copilot suggesting things there. So now I can say, I can reference this configuration object and be able to say, well, this is my hat collection over on the index page. And I want to put it, not my hats collection, but my hat collection. So how do I do it? How do I get things from configuration into here? There's a configuration object that you can reference. So I can inject, and you'll see this inject directive. I believe we talked about it briefly last time. We talked about dependency injection through the controller. Today we're going to inject here inside of our view. I'm going to inject, it's an object called configuration, and I'll let it be called configuration. This is a reference to the configuration system, and I'm then able to take the configuration object and iterate through its objects to put information on screen. So we called it collection type. I'll save that there, and now it says my hat collection. Okay, right? It's clearly pulling that from my settings over here, right? I could change that to my coin collection, and I changed the configuration file. It didn't know to reload, but there it is. After I force a reload, now it's my coin collection. It's taking that content from here and putting it on screen. Okay, so we know how to load data from that app settings JSON file. That's a nice tool that we can use to store configuration information that can change outside of our source code, that can change on disk on our web server. That's nice. What about other places we can put data? So not only can you load data from this configuration file, if you think about it, when I have to work with APIs, when I have to work with a database, I'm going to have passwords, API keys, these secrets that I don't necessarily want to put in a file that I'm going to commit and put on GitHub. Have you ever looked at somebody's GitHub repository and seen passwords in their source code? That's not secure. The world can find and see passwords in your source code. Don't do that. So how do we do that better? Right? And I'm seeing that my camera's going slightly out of focus as I'm sitting here tuning in. This is ridiculous. This makes me sad. Hold that thought. That should do it. Just that little dial. There we go. Better, much better. Okay, so how do we do that? You can store things in Key Vault. That's one place you can put it, absolutely. But if you're not on Azure, and if you don't have Key Vault, there's other places you can put it to kind of hide it from interacting with this. The autocomplete, that comes with C#. And I have autopilot working here. So let's take a look at being able to submit things as environment variables, command line arguments, and also through a tool called secrets. Now, I'm sure I'm going to forget how to do secrets. Old web configs had that secured section that got encrypted at build. Yes, and it got decrypted, and folks were able to decrypt it. All right, so let's take a look at, I can start the application. So I have this running with .NET Watch right here. Let me go back over here. Am I in the right folder? Yes, okay. I can .NET run and pass in configuration objects. So I can pass in an argument for collection type equals hat, and I forget how to do this. Let's do a help here. If I want to pass additional arguments, so is it this? Can I say coin? Will that run and do the thing that I'm looking for here? I think it does. And now it's my coin collection because I passed the argument as a name value pair right there on the command line. That doesn't always work. That isn't always something portable that you can do inside your application. So where else can I put those values, right? And if I don't, no, right? Just straight .NET run, and it's my hat collection again. But I can also put variables inside of environment variables. That's really effective if you've got a container and you want to pass secrets in there and pass that information around. So I can, what is it? It's not set in PowerShell. It's not export. I'm forgetting what the PowerShell command for setting an environment variable is. And the name of is collection type. PowerShell set environment variable. I always forget this, and I have to look up the syntax. Yeah. $env colon variable name equals new value. Okay. So let's do $env. You can't see it down there. $env collection type equals movie poster. Okay. And now if I .NET run, and if we head back to here, now it's my movie poster collection. So it's reading the environment variable and overlaying that on top of what's in app settings. So think about that. When you deploy your application, right, you have some app settings that are going to contain some natural defaults when you're in development, staging. But when you get into a production space, your operations team that manages your web servers, they're going to have the logins, the keys, for all the things for how production works. So they can put those values into environment variables configured on that machine or being passed into that Docker container, and they get loaded in and they're interpreted and read here. So you can use environment variables. So let's clear out that And if we rerun the application, and now it's back to my hat collection. So we have options now to pass in through environment variables, through app settings on disk, through input parameters. There's also a tool called User Secrets that you can use that's intended to be something that you as a developer use on your machine. Do I have it? Do I have it installed and running here? I do. So you can use the command line tool .NET User Secrets. There is also a gesture in Visual Studio. You can right-click on a project and say Manage Secrets. I want to show you how to do this on the command line because it's a little bit more direct way to work with it, and it works, of course, on Mac and Linux as well. Let me answer a couple questions that are coming in here on chat. Yep, for local machine development, we're going to do User Secrets. Where's the season schedule? I don't really have a season schedule. I'll post what I have over on the GitHub repository. Apple's keychain is cool tech. That's very much like Key Vault. I don't have Key Vault that I'm going to be showing here today. BJ asks, how did I become world-class in C#? Lots of practice. Lots of practice, lots of studying, writing lots of applications. Hello to you, Sengoku in Russia. Welcome in. So, when I have user secrets, this is a way for me to take values, to take passwords and API keys and put them somewhere outside my project, somewhere in a different location on disk, so that I don't inadvertently commit them into GitHub or whatever source control system you have. So let's initialize user secrets here. So .NET user-secrets, and I'm going to initialize it for this project. Now what that did was it put a ID, you see the little ID right here, into the project. So I'll head over here, let me show you the project file. The project file. And you see it put this user secrets ID in here. Okay, it's just a GUID. But that points to a location on disk where those user secrets are stored. So I'm going to go create a user secret for my collection type. So let's say .NET user secrets set, and I'm going to set collection. It's a little bit hidden there. Let's do that again. .NET user secrets set collection type, and this time let's make it comic books. Okay. So that's now setting that value in the secret store. When I run the application this time, the app settings file is the lowest priority value. Okay, that's the default value. Command line parameters are passed in. User secrets, environment variables have different priority order after that. But now when I reload this, it now picks up and shows my secret value. This is actually my comic book collection. And I can go through and change that value. I can remove it. Right? User secrets, remove collection type. And run the application again. And now it's back to my hat collection. So we have ways to layer in configuration. And there's an order of priority that you can find in the documentation. I should add a link to the documentation into the README over here. To do, add link to configuration documentation. All right, I will make sure I get that updated. So I can put my configuration of what these types are over here. And somebody was asking, well, how do you change the collection type in another view? Well, if I have another view, I can pass that same configuration around into all of those locations and just pick it out at that point. Where can you find the source code for the project? All of the content you're watching on YouTube. Check out just below. There's a link to the GitHub repository in the description. And this is Sessions Season 2 collection website. And this is 1204. I'll make sure I update the link to come right to this folder. Zofran777 on Twitch asks, can environment variables be used to switch between SQLite for development and SQL Server for production? Yes and no. Let's talk about it. Let's look at that as I add in the configuration for Entity Framework. That's a great question. Let me add that in right now as I do Entity Framework, and I'll show you how you can kind of pivot on that. Okay. So this data is being loaded from a file. That next piece that we're going to do here is, instead of loading that data from this collection JSON file that we were tinkering with last time, how do you load data from disk, from a little JSON file on disk, right? This is a nice way to just have some simple data on disk. Maybe it's sitting in source control. It's something that isn't going to change. We use this technology, actually, this very technique, for loading the session list on the .NET Conf website. And check out .NETconf.net. We have an event coming up in August focused on .NET MAUI, a full day of .NET MAUI development. I want you to check it out. We're picking content. We're planning sessions now. I want to make sure that you're part of that. Coming up in August, okay? That website for .NET Conf loads all the session data from files on disk, static files on disk like this. It's very, very fast. It doesn't change that often. And when it does, we just update that JSON file or that CSV file that's sitting in a GitHub repository, save, and the GitHub actions on GitHub wake up, see that there was a change, rebuild, redeploy, and everybody sees the new content. We don't need to build a big content management system that knows how to load and manage all of that data. We don't have to worry about security and stuff like that because it's already being taken care of over on GitHub. So let's change this now so it uses a database. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a reference to, and let's do it over here in the console window. I'm going to add a reference to the SQLite driver for Entity Framework Core. Because the driver depends on Entity Framework Core, it will also bring in all the dependencies for Entity Framework Core when I add the driver into the application. Let me show you. So we add packages, we add features to our application using NuGet, the .NET packaging system. So I'll say .NET add package, and the package that I need is Microsoft Entity Framework Core SQLite. Okay. When I execute that, it's going to go out to NuGet. It's going to download those packages, just like you might see if you're using pip or using npm or some other package manager. It's going to go download those packages and put them into my project. So if I go back over here and we go to my project file, yep, that one, you see there is my new reference to SQLite. Now, because it has a dependency on Microsoft Entity Framework Core, it also downloaded that and the other Entity Framework Core capabilities and tools and dependencies and put them behind the scenes inside my project. So, I've got one command, it's added this in, and now I can start to put in the objects necessary to convert my collection item model object that I was using to put those hats on screen here into database objects. So I'm going to get this over here. I'm going to split my screen with Control-Shift-, and I'm going to go into the exact same folder here. Season 2. Come on now. 2. The collection website, 1204. Source. Cool. And I'm going to .NET Watch in this lower panel down here because I want you to see, as I make changes, how it updates the website, and when there's errors, what happens, okay? That's kind of important to see as you're making changes, as you're refactoring your application, how does it affect the website? Okay? Shapur, with a comment on YouTube, I can't get how developers can use this method on server because users didn't have access to server or the command line. So where is it possible to do this? Good question. This is the tool that I'm using here, these command lines. You're going to use these on your developer workstation to set up your project. When you get into production, somebody else is going to update the database. Somebody else is going to run these commands to get the operations running in that space. Because you're right, developers don't have access to the production servers. You're absolutely right. These commands are developer workstation commands. When you get into production, somebody else is going to run it. Somebody else is going to update the database. And they've got tools and capabilities to apply those features to the database, to the web server. Some do but shouldn't. Well, that's a whole nother discussion. I'm keeping an eye over here to make sure that you see me look over here. I'm looking at my cheat monitor here, my confidence monitor, so I'm sure that things are looking good. All right. So the application is out there. It's running. Let's start to introduce an entity framework database context that will do that connection to the database for me. So I'm going to go into my models folder here, and I'm going to create a new file. Actually, I'm not even going to create a new file. I'm going to lie about that for a second. I'm going to work with my repository. I mentioned repository pattern earlier. Lets me swap out objects, so I don't have to swap out my database interaction and definitions, so I don't have to modify my my user interface. Before I do that, Jay with a very good question here. I need to stop and answer. Can you use the user secrets tool for production? No. User secrets is only enabled when you're in development mode. When you're in production mode, user secrets is not included. We recommend you use a tool like environment variables or a key vault like Azure Key Vault to store those secrets and deploy them securely into your application. Okay? So let's start defining my database context here. So I have one class here called my collection item repository. I'm going to create a database context. A database context, as we saw previously with Entity Framework, is a class. Let's get some more space in there so we can see it. Yes, I know it's a missing command. Not a collection item. Let's call this our collection repository. Okay. No, not collection repository. Oh my gosh. My collection context. And that is a DB context. Now, before I go anywhere, I'm going to move this to another file. Gone. There we go. Over to that file. All right. So it doesn't know what a DB context is, so I'm going to control dot on that. And it still doesn't know what that is. You're mocking me. What? And all of a sudden my hotkeys don't work. There we go. Reload that window. Oh, I know. I know what it is. It has the wrong solution loaded over here. Hang on. Get the right one loaded. I want that one. Cool. So now I should be able to... There we go. Now it knows my using statement. So I get my using statement for Entity Framework Core. Okay. So let's define a property for the DB set of collection item objects. And I'll call this collection items. Okay. Now, Notice it has a yellow underline here. It's looking at this and saying, oh, wait a sec, that can be non-null. There's a way around this. What we do is we set this to a set of collection items with that syntax. Now the null check goes away, and we're in good shape. Shapur on YouTube asks, how can I secure information in a configuration file when I can't add keys to the environment in host? I'm a little confused. That's fair. You don't secure information in your configuration file. You're going to need to be able to either add entries into environment. Sometimes on some hosting providers like Azure App Service, they call it configuration settings. The configuration settings on App Service turn into environment variables and will then be picked up by your application. So take a look at that. Yes, I already discussed environment variables. Sorry, Babak. We covered that. You can rewind and look at my brief description of that. So I have my collection items here. I now need to register this context so that we can use it to interact with the database. So that registration is inside my program CS. We register objects for dependency injection capabilities, the context locator, here using this builder services syntax. So I'm going to add an entry here, builder services, and I'm going to say, what is it? Add DB context. There we go. Look at that. And I'm adding, look at that. Pretty cool. I'm getting some help there from GitHub Copilot. Now, let's look at this syntax, because it's pretty good syntax, but it's not the right syntax for us. It comes up and it suggests use SQL Server, and that's the typical. That is the typical reference that you'll see in demos that use SQL Server is use SQL Server. We're using SQLite, so I'm just going to change that to use SQLite. I get my using statement, and let's see if I can I cheat and put the paren there. Look at that. Look at that. Copilot is putting in the correct connection string that I want. mycollectionsite.db. Look at that. That's our connection string for SQLite. So it knows where the file is on disk, okay? SQLite is a relational database where all of our data is stored in one file, a .db file written to disk. So mycollectionsite.db, this syntax now registers and makes available all of the interactions for that database and that context that we just created, collection context, on disk. All right, that's pretty cool. Looks like Restream is having an issue with connecting to the chat room. Let me see if I can keep an eye over here. Okay. Nope, they're still having a problem. All right, I'm going to continue, and I'm keeping an eye on chat. Not through my teleprompter. All right, so I've registered, and I have that available. Now, in order for this database context to know how to connect to SQLite, I need to create a constructor for it. There's a snippet that will get you that constructor, or Copilot can just generate it for you. I'm just going to tab and let it put it in there. So this is the constructor for the class. It takes a DB context options object, and this is an options collection object that has things in it like your database connection string and other information about how to connect. And we just pass that into the base. Real easy to do. You don't have to think about that too much. It just does it for you. Yeah, that loaded properly. that loaded properly as well. Yeah, Restream's having a real hard time over here. I'm missing chat, and I'll get back to you in just a little bit here when Restream comes back online. Okay, so this is now available to me, and if I go over and I look at my shell here, right, I'll let it rebuild. You could see there were some changes that it didn't like there, but it rebuilt, and now it knows how to work with that object. Let's put that into my repository so that it's not doing this, okay? So let's add a constructor here. And, right, because, see, it's still loading, and because I'm updating the collection item repository, it's saying, you're in a bad state right now. So I'm going to receive a collection context. Let's just call it CTX. And say, not contact, context equals CTX. And I'm going to stash that in a read-only field right there. Nobody else is editing what this is. We're just grabbing it and we're going to reference it. So now when I do my get, instead of loading it from disk, right, we're just going to return context collection items. And when I go over here, what? No! Doesn't know what that is. Let's have it rebuild. Don't just hot reload, rebuild. And we need a key on our collection item object. Okay, let's add a key, right? This is a database thing, right? We need to have keys on these, so we'll add a ID field here. Do that with a property. There we go. I'll call this ID, and we need to call this. I'm going to explicitly call this out as a key there. And now it already rebuilt behind the scenes, and it says, I don't know what collection items is. Let's tell it what collection items is. So I'm going to stop the application because I need to go and work with Entity Framework now and start interacting with it. And yeah, it looks like Restream is having some issues with their service. I can't get things reloaded right now. So I'm sorry, but I'm not able to see chat right now. Let's, I'm going to do it up here. Yes. So I'm going to execute .NET EF database update. Now what this does is it compiles the application and it will create the database and apply any changes to it that are required. And you can see some of the commands that executed right here. Check it out. Create table, migrations history. No migrations were applied, database is up to date. There's nothing else to add to it. It just already knows what it should have. Looks like chat is coming back online. Looks like it. We'll see. So now if I rerun the application, .NET Watch. So here it is coming up, and it's still saying no such table collection items. We need to define and get that initial block of data in there. Let's do that. .NET EF migrations add first object. First commit. All right. So this will acknowledge and pick up that object that's in there, that collection items. And I'll say .NET EF database update again. I'm keeping an eye here, trying to get really? You're going to make me... Are you... I have to go through two-factor authentication to get in here. Really? Yeah, and you're still down. All right. So it's .NET Watch again. now that it's updated the database, and now I have my hat collection. Okay, there's nothing in the database. So that brings us to our next topic of seed data. So let's set up some content for this to start with. So I'm going to close a couple of these files. I don't need collection item anymore. But in here, we can specify some seed data, that initial data that is always, maybe it's reference data, that's always in your database. So I'm going to override on model creating, okay? And I can add some content right here. Let's move that up so you can see what's going on. So I will use a command here called entity, and I'm referencing a collection item. Nope, not has key. It already knows that. Has data. All right. And I'm going to load some sample data into this. So, and it's going to tell me here, oh, I don't actually have content here. Yeah, I know. So I'm going to just grab my collection JSON here, grab this data, bring it over, and paste it like that. But I'm converting this into collection item objects. So let's do, nope, that wasn't it. Nope. Oh, come on. I'm forgetting the hotkey. Is it just hold down? No, it's not hold down Alt. I'm trying to do multiple cursors and I'm not getting it to work. No matter. I'm forgetting how to do multiple cursors. Here we go. And this is a date, so we need to convert this to a date time. And I'll just put some commas like that. I need to put an ID on this now. So we'll do that. And I'll put the same entry over here. Okay. And I need an ID on this one. I could make it 12, but why? New date time. All right. So now I've got my two objects here. That's an additional database change. So I'm actually going to stop the website. And let's create another migration, and I'll call this seed data. We'll reapply that, and it should light up with that additional data for me. So database update. And when that's done, it's going to build, and it's going to apply that seed data. There it goes. If I scroll up here, you can see. There, insert. See the inserts? So now I'll .NET watch. It'll rebuild, recycle the website, and all I did was change my repository object, and my hats are loading again, and there they are. Okay. That's a lot of steps. I'm sorry, I can't see chat right now. Our chat service is down. When I get back to the other seat, I'm going to stop here in just a few seconds. When I get back to the other seat, I'll load up chat and go through and answer your questions. We've moved things nicely over here. Of note, I did hard code that database connection. I did hard code this into my application. I can use, excuse me, I can use a connection string here. I can specify a connection string. There it is, string connection string. There's also, I believe, a connection string. A way to get a connection string name. I don't see it there. And I'm forgetting right now how to get configuration in this. You can put this into a section inside configuration to load the connection string. Let me punt on that and add that to my list of notes to add over here. Load connection string from configuration. Configuration. Make sure I get that in there. I will update these notes. Yeah. Cool. All right. Let me head. I can't see chat right now, so it's hard for me to interact with you. Let me head back to the other desk and see what questions you have over on YouTube and Twitch, and we can talk more about it. All right. There we go. Back to this microphone. Oh my gosh, that sounds so much better. Yeah, that's not loading. And that died on me over there too. Is it really that simple? Yes. You don't have to use Fluent API for seed data. Nope. There is an override that allows for configuration, says Chuck Beasley on Twitch. Yes, I didn't see it. I'll make sure I grab that and update the notes appropriately from this session. Let me take a look back here at YouTube. Somebody asked for the YouTube link for previous videos in the series. If you take a look at the playlist just below me here on YouTube, click that link. That'll get you through. Actually, no, there isn't a playlist link there. Darn it. All right, let's grab that playlist link for you. What? Yes, all playlists. What did they do to that screen? There you go. So the YouTube playlist, you can find... Is it going to let me? There you go. There's the YouTube playlist. All right. Yeah, you don't need to put put in an annotation on ID because by default it is key. Yes. What's the snippet for Copilot list? CTOR. C-T-O-R will get you a constructor, and then you have to fill in the that context. What is it? Context options to load. Smoke coming from the mouse. No. Yeah, builder configure. Oh, you can access configuration from the builder. Thank you, M3 Speed King. I couldn't remember. It's one of those things I configure once and it doesn't hit. And oh look, Restream is outputting twice there. Nice. Can I force Restream to reload? Way to go there. Where is it? Chat. Way to go. See if that clears things up. There we go. All right. Why do I have to... Struggle with a good question. Why do I have to use configuration? Sure, let's answer that. So you want to use a configuration file or environment variable, stuff like that, for those things that are going to modify the way your application works that need to be part of the application before it's able to reach out to some other service. right? You need to update that application with information about how to connect to the database. When you're in different environments, whether it's on your developer workstation, you're in production, you're in the cloud, that database might be in a different location. So you want to put that connection string into a configuration file or into an environment variable or somewhere where it can get lifted up and read by your application at startup. So then you know how to connect to those things. .NET is dying? Says who? Says who? Anybody tells you that a technology is dying is full of it and has ulterior motives. Connection strings with user and password, where do you put them? So Azure Key Vault is one place that is recommended when you're running on Azure. You can put them in environment variables as well. So you can pass them into containers. You can put them into other Key Vault types of services as well. What do you mean you can't make an app with it? So, yes, my fingers are still blue. We showed. Yes. Very blue hair. What can I tell you? We've got a few minutes left here. I can go to some more AMA as we're going along here. Space Shot suggested what? Oh, that's great, Rick. Glad you're doing well. Node.js with Go and even Ruby on Rails dominates back-end development. Do I need to go and show you? Take a look at Tech Empower and see how slow those services are and how hard they are to work with. Then get back to me. It is that easy to use these things. Folks that are using Node.js, it takes time. Those single-threaded services take time to run, and by the benchmarks that are out there from the folks on Tech Empower, show that it runs really slow. All of those services run really slow. So take your pick. Take your pick. And then where are you going to get tooling for those? Particularly, take a look at the plain text up there, because that's the raw speed of the web server. What are migrations? How do they relate to the code we just wrote? Asks Dylan. Migrations are the changes that are being made to the database based on the code that we wrote. Okay? So you wrote code, you changed a database, an entity that connects and interacts with the database. You need to sync up that definition that you have in code with the definition that's in the database schema, and we do that with a migration. We point the two services at each other, and they sync up. When using SQLite, I get messages saying it does not support schema specifically when also using identity. Will this cause issues when going to production with SQL Server? What kind of schema errors are you getting, Zofran? That's clearly something I didn't see when I was using it just then. Are you sure you're using SQLite 3? Would be my next question. I'd be curious what data types you're passing in there. Because there's ways that SQLite is very, very plain in how it deals with numbers and other data types. Like, it doesn't actually have a date data type. It actually puts things into string and converts them back and forth. Morzehun asks, how hard is it to learn C++ from C#? There's all kinds of things in C++ that you need to learn how to do because it's not a managed language. C# is a managed language. Memory, processor, garbage collection are things that you don't have to worry about in C#, but you need to be sure you clean up and handle securely and effectively in C++. You're definitely going to see a learning curve. Yeah, absolutely, Space Shot. Thank you for chiming in there. Why don't I use the developer version of SQL Server so that I don't have to convert before going to production? Yes, I absolutely would suggest folks do that. Use the developer version of SQL Server so you have the same type of database. You're using the same driver between development and production. So I did not send out glasses yet. Yes, you did win the giveaway. We're going to be sending. I've got a handful of things that we're sending out. Yes. We did a bunch of giveaways. We did a bunch of promotions over on the CSharpFritz channel, and I'm sending all those things out. I've got a bunch of runs that I've done back and forth to the post office to get envelopes and things. We're just about ready to send things out. Having issues with Blazor identity authentication requesting for web API. Any articles I suggest to read. Take a look at, I would suggest you look at the sample code in the Blazing Pizza workshop. That is on GitHub because that does exactly what you're looking for. And I will grab that link for you and drop that into chat. Where is it? Blazor workshop. There it is. And it's like module 6. Yeah, there it is. Take a look at how that does authentication and see if you can find something that you need to tune there to get working. CharnPreet on YouTube says, I'm from Java, currently working in .NET and C#. If I have chosen an outdated language for my future, Java or C#? C# is getting updates every year. There's new innovations being added to C# all the time. Things that other languages are learning and adding. No, not outdated at all. I have an app that I know will need to scale for our internal employee base that needs Signal, 300 employees at once. Would I recommend Blazor Server or Blazor WebAssembly? Either one will work. Blazor WebAssembly runs in the browser, so Blazor Server is big enough. 300 concurrent users is well within parameters for them. WebAssembly moves all that technology, all that interaction to the client. Either one will work fine. I would lean towards server for the ease of the deployment and management model. Is C# good for your future? Absolutely, yes. Because you can build anything with it, and Microsoft continues to invest heavily in it. Java is getting more and more contributions from the community, and you're seeing the folks at Oracle do some interesting things with the management of the language. Yeah, very good job markets. Thank you, Peter, on YouTube. Glowy asks, am I going to demonstrate doing this in Linux environment? I'm going to do Mac next time. We can take a look at Linux in the future, absolutely. Does EF migration look for schema in collection item CS and on model creating? There's another file that it saves to disk that it does check. I don't have it sitting here in front of me, but you can take a look at it. You'll see there's a migrations folder, and inside there, there's schema information that's saved. Wrapping up here, can I use Azure services in Russia without fear? I don't have a good answer for that in the current political climate. I don't think so. Unfortunately, because of the current climate. My apologies. I mean, you can connect out to Azure services running in other regions, but I'm not sure that they're going to grant access to your account if it's registered in Russia. I'm not the person to dive into and talk about that, but I believe there's some interesting challenges because of the current politics. Awesome. That's all the time we have here today. Thank you so much, friends, for tuning in. This was a lot of fun. Always getting into some great content, great lessons, answering good questions here together. Location data type. Yeah, location data type isn't available in SQLite. Friends, if you have other questions, you have other things you want me to address, you want me to bring into another topic, please go onto the issues list on the GitHub repository. Drop an item there, and I will try to add it into a future session. If you have other questions for me, for the team, drop me a line on Twitter. I am CSharpFritz on Twitter. Happy to answer further questions there. Get you help you might need in solving a problem. Moving forward, I want you to be productive. I want you to be successful. For those of you that are watching me on Learn TV, thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoy the rest of the content that's available there. If you're watching us on YouTube, there's all kinds of content here on the .NET channel. Check out the links above. Check out the links over on the side over there. There's fantastic content. And of course, if you're watching the recording, click that like button down below, drop a subscribe, hit that bell so you're notified when we go live, when we've got more content coming from you. Next week, we're going to be talking about, I believe we're talking about APIs next week. And we're going to get into some questions that were also brought up about logging. And I'm going to try and do the session from my Mac. And those of you that are watching us on Twitch, it's time for a raid. Let's take a look at who else is streaming on the big Twitch TV network. We can get you connected to, get you in some more great content, some more coding out there. Folks that are writing and doing some cool stuff. I'm going to get you connected over to... Wow, there's not a lot of folks out here streaming right now. Let me get you connected into... What's this over here? No. Oh, gosh. Let's head over to our friend Lana Lux, who's programming with .NET in Unity right now, building games. And, come on, where'd that link go? There it is. I will see you tomorrow. I'll be a little bit late tomorrow getting started. I have another event that I'm participating in. But on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/CSharpFritz, we'll be talking about Blazor, Azure, and NoSQL development. And I will see you next week here to talk about APIs and ASP.NET Core. I'll see you then. Take care.